If you're in Florida, forget about Florida and Florida State and turn your attention to Orlando. There's a big game brewing on Friday night as the USF Bulls travel to Orlando to take on the undefeated UCF Knights.
Yeah, the I-4 rivalry is really heating up a lot this year. As it hasn't necessarily in years past, one of these teams is actually ranked. This is going to be a pretty interesting and tough-fought game between two coaches who are pretty new at their respective programs.
And USF has a great offense under Quentin Flowers, and they're kind of underrated. They averaged 494 yards on total offense this year. They rush, but they also pass. They're pretty balanced, 217 passing yards per game, 276 rushing yards per game. It's very rare that we see this type of explosive offense in the AAC. But not only are they good on the offensive side of the ball, they make some magic on defense. The Bulls' defense may not be the best, but they do have one of the best turnover margins in the country. 17 total, something they are really going to need against this UCF team as they look to get a win and make a good season out of this. 10-1 would be great for them.
And you want to talk about a high-powered offense, you have to talk about UCF. They're averaging almost 50 points a game this year, which is just absolutely amazing. Arguably the best offense in the entire country. They haven't been tested as much as most teams, as much as most opponents and coaches who are watching their game film would have liked. But they have been extremely opportunistic, which no matter who you're playing, you have to be. They're tied for the highest turnover margin in the country with Miami at plus 16. They have 16 interceptions for 2 pick sixes, and they have 9 fumble recoveries so far. And they really take advantage of those turnovers. They have a lot of points off turnovers this year, and that's a big reason as to why their offense has been so successful. When you're giving your offense consistently good field position, and especially coming off of a turnover, the other team's defense is deflated, your team's offense is elevated, and feeling all the momentum from that big play, it's helped them a lot, and it's a big reason why they're still undefeated.
UCF, there's not too much to talk about in terms of weaknesses. They're undefeated, which is unheard of. Just 2 years ago, they were defeated. Now they're undefeated. Scott Frost has really turned around this program in the 2 years he's been there. But one thing they do lack is history on their side. They have lost the last 2 games, and they've lost 75% of their total matchups. It's not a game that's been going on for a long time, though. Both of these programs are fairly new. One thing they also lack in is a strong schedule. The best team they've played so far this year is Navy, who brought a triple option offense against them, but they did really good holding their ground. It was very interesting because Scott Frost used to run a triple option at Nebraska, and it won him a championship. He really has prepared this team well for every scenario they've faced this season.
He is one of the top coaching prospects for a lot of those Power 5 conference teams going forward. There's been a lot of coaching controversy, a lot of coaches getting fired recently, and he's a name that's going straight to the top of a lot of lists. And USF, they have a pretty bad schedule too. They have 3 games this year that you can really take a look at when you want to talk about just weakness as far as, challenge. And that's Tulsa, Tulane, and Houston, arguably the 3 best teams they've played all year. All of those games were uncomfortably close, and Houston was the one loss they've had this season. None of those teams are really good. None of those teams are ranked or have been ranked at any point in the season. But, for whatever reason, against slightly tougher competition where it's slightly elevated, the level of play and the level of attention on the game is elevated, they've struggled a lot this year. And they're very, very star-heavy. It's about 32% of their total offense comes through just 2 players. Their receiving, Marquez Valdez-Scantling has 35% of their overall receiving yards. And their quarterback is also their leading rusher, who has about 31% of the team's total rushing yards. They combine for a majority of the team's touchdowns and just a majority of their big plays in general. If you take away either one of those players, this team goes downhill in a hurry, especially on the offensive side.
Quentin Flowers is definitely the driving force behind this offense. The senior quarterback is much more than that, though. He has 2,100 passing yards for 17 touchdowns, alongside an additional 870 rushing yards for 9 touchdowns. He's one of the most efficient dual-threat quarterbacks in the nation right now. And to throw a little salt in the wound to my fellow Gator fans, he really wanted to come to UF, and we could have had some great success here these last 4 seasons, but UF failed to consider him. And just look at the talent he's brought to USF. He's really put this program on the map these past 4 years.
Yeah, and another great quarterback that the University of Florida missed out on is Mackenzie Milton. He's played 1 less game than a lot of other quarterbacks who have had 11. Because of that, those 2 hurricanes early in the year, they had to miss those games and haven't been able to make them up. But he has 2,928 passing yards on the season, which is up there with a lot of the other elite passing offenses in the entire country. When you consider that he has 1 less game, that's even more impressive. He has 26 touchdowns, and he limits his turnovers to only 5 on the year. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country, and the fact that he's so young is really impressive, and how he's leading this team. He's not necessarily the dual threat that Quentin Flowers is, but he does add 400 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns on the ground. He's had another amazing year, and he's most likely going to elevate his game again next year and have UCF in a very similar position.
Griffin, do you know what this means?
I have absolutely no idea, Janae.
Let me tell you, it's not rock on, it's go Bulls. That's who I'm picking for this game. It's going to be an exciting matchup, but I think I'd love to see USF win. Just for you, Dad, USF has really put themselves on the map, especially with Quentin Flowers at quarterback. They've got nothing to lose here. Neither does UCF. Both of these teams have had great seasons. Whoever wins this game is going to definitely get a boost, but both of these teams are going to continue to have great years in the coming future, and I think that USF is ready for a big marquee win, and that could be this.
Yeah, just because you copy Texas with the hook'em horns doesn't make you guys cool, so I guess go UCF, down with the horns. UCF has just been by far the better team this year, and they're probably going to continue that success and maybe even get a New Year's Day bowl after they win this game.
This is going to be a close game, though. I think it's going to be 1 possession. If you enjoyed this matchup, be sure to check out our other rivalry games. And also, if you haven't checked out our Dizzy Sports Challenge, check it out. It's about 5 minutes of pure laughter as you watch both of us fail at sports.
It was a great time. It's about 5 minutes of watching us just repeatedly fall on our face and be possibly the most unathletic you could imagine.
Yeah, Griffin definitely was a little messed up by spinning around too many times.
My knee is still cut up after that. still bleeding.
The great thing is you don't feel it, though, because you're so messed up.
Oh, my gosh. It was bad.
I face planted, and I didn't even feel it. I was laughing.
Best GIF you will ever see.
That is true. Thanks for watching. I'm Janae Muchmore.
And I'm Griffin Parkrose.
And you're watching RedZone to EndZone. Have a great weekend.